If the husband can't last in bed more than 10 seconds, is it the wife's fault? I'm going to address a comment that reached me via a Facebook group. This one was done by a man who identifies himself or describes himself as a sophist. This detail is important. Hi, this is Liana, holistic intimacy coach. Welcome back to my channel. Here, I help you get your orgasmic intimacy. First of all, I'm going to read the comment. I'm going to put it on screen, but I'm also going to read it. Here it goes. When most married women complain that their husbands don't satisfy them in bed, that he is a 10 seconds man, it isn't the husband's fault. I can beat my chest and tell you that 97% of such women were never married as a virgin. The man is actually trying his best, but the thing is that he went and married a bed-to-bed midfielders. The innocent man is literally in a relationship or marriage with a woman past sexual experience. He is in a competition with sex toys, sex machines, vibrators, different, I guess that would be cocks here, both big and small, black and white. He is trying his best to measure up with men, toys, and heavy machines that has drilled that hole in the past, and now the difficulty is that he can't win. This guy needs to learn English grammar. I'm going to continue. No matter how hard he tries, he can't win this battle. He can't satisfy her. Because she's addicted to different cocks, heavy-duty sexual machines, toys, and vibrators, she begins to fault the man for his incompetence of matching the sexual stamina and the experience of her past penetrators. This will automatically make her go back to the street in search of what she used to enjoy, and it makes her lose respect for the man, cheat on him, and etc. A strong reason why you must not end up with a streeter, a woman with a high body count. You can't satisfy her. You will try, but you will be mocked. She's for the street, pipe and swipe. Be wise. I'm sorry, because I'm not a native English speaker, but I am certified as a teacher of English as a foreign language. Some of this stuff, like too many mistakes here, sir. English grammar, please. Okay, now, I respect somebody's right to have an opinion. However, it doesn't mean that I have to agree with them. And where do I start with this? First of all, how do you know that most women that married and complain about their husbands were not virgins? How do you know? Why do you make assumptions? How do you give this number? Beat your chest and say that 90% of the cases. You can beat your chest and say whatever. You can beat your chest and say that 50%. You can beat your chest and say that 100%. You can beat your chest and say whatever. What is your actual proof? Do you have any statistics here? Any kind. From your country, from your continent, from my country, Romania, Southeastern Europe, from America, from Western Europe. Do you have any statistics? Sir, as a sophist, you'd better learn to build up your argument based on more grounded elements. Just beating your chest, anybody can beat their chest and say whatever. So how do you know? I don't have any figures to disagree with this or to support this. So I'm not going to consider it as valid. I'm just going to consider it as a sophist beating his chest to prove a point. Sophists, by the way, were heavily criticized by Plato based on the fact that, one, they sold their services at a time where thinking was done freely. Secondly, they were twisting reality. They weren't really thinking of what was true, what was grounded, or facts. They were twisting things just to prove their point. Okay, they were making an argument more than just understanding, or rather than understanding reality. That's the biggest criticism brought to sophism. Forgive my fault at accents. You're beating your chest and giving a 90% figure of women that are married and complain about this based on just beating your own chest. Sorry, sir, it doesn't work that way. Secondly, you keep saying that women are using sex toys, what machines? What sex machines are you talking about? Vibrators. vibrators would be a sex toy, right? Why are you repeating yourself? Different penises. Black and white, does it matter which color it is? Really? Does it matter that it's pink, purple, orange, yellow, red, white? I'm sorry. Does a man's genitalia matter in terms of color now? Really? I thought it mattered in terms of size, logistics, because a certain size might not fit into a woman's size. Yes, this is something that the Kama Sutra, if you haven't read this, sir, and you're giving sex advice to people, I suggest you read Kama Sutra. They're actually talking there about being compatible in sizes. If somebody's too large and the other person is too small, that's incompatibility, and usually it ends up with pain. If the man is large and the woman is small, you don't even want to discuss colors then. That's one. Secondly, what matters in intimacy is compatibility. Compatibility in arousal, compatibility in their erotic understanding, what meaning they give to the acts themselves. How often, okay, in frequency, how often each partner needs something. Duration, how long a person needs to enjoy it. And ability to communicate with one another and to understand each other. It also matters in intimacy that each person works out their insecurities. What I read here is somebody that is justifying another person's insecurities in intimacy. Yeah, it is said that sex and intimacy in bed is the last bastion of masculinity. That's where he proves it. In a lot of cases, most of the stuff that men do are for what? For reproduction and for getting laid. Let's just call it as it is. You guys are driven by a lot of testosterone, and one of those ways in which testosterone drives you is with a high libido, much higher than women's, that's for sure. Therefore, if you are insecure about your performance, about your size, about color, the discussion of black and white, I have not heard it so far in genitalia, honestly. Color in genitalia was not an issue. And by the way, white people actually have different colors in their genital area. Some people tend to be more pink, others tend to be more red, especially when aroused. Other people, especially with age, tend to turn towards darker shades. The tissues mature. Secondly, with the toys and the heavy machine, what heavy machine? What do you think women have at home? Honestly, you have a very skewed opinion of women. I don't even have any idea what kind of heavy machines you're talking about. When I got trained into human sexuality and I work with women to help them balance their impulses, and in most cases it's just to awaken it because it's been shamed, it's been shut down, it's been overwhelmed by a lot of duty, by a lot of crap. Most women in marriages, at least the women that come to me, they don't have a libido because they're overworked, they're tired, their man doesn't really take the time to arouse them properly, so they don't meet in arousal. I was talking about this compatibility thing in arousal first and foremost. If you don't have ignition together, you don't have anything. Most women on this, at least let me not make the mistake that you're making. So the women that came to coaching with me, most of them were from my country, Romania, Southeastern Europe, and we're not talking not even 1% of the women. It's a large country and I can't really work with millions of women. No practitioner of any kind, whether it's medicine, whether it's education, nobody can work with 9 million people, which is about half of our country's population nowadays. So of those women that did reach me in individual sessions, nobody complained about comparing their husbands to sex machines. Most of them didn't want to do anything because they didn't really enjoy anything with their husbands. Yes, most of the women that came to me married virgins. And at least in the case of my country, we are still a heavily religious country. Most people here marry early still. not in cities, but still. And the women of my generation, so I'm over 40, they married, a lot of them, virgins. And a lot of them without education, their husbands without education. It ended up in misery in many cases. They weren't compatible, but they didn't know this because nobody educated them, nobody encouraged them to have any conversation about it. They just pushed them into marriage and then let them figure it out. A lot of them complained that with time, with the man's lack of physical activity, that's what happened to those women that reached me, his performance went below that 10-second mark. It's not even the woman's fault. It's the guy that doesn't take care of his health. And sometimes poor health, no physical activity, yeah, it can drive you to erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation. Yes, it can. This is what you're talking about. You're talking about premature ejaculation here. Also, in the training that I had, nobody talked about machines. Not even, okay? And do you realize we are sex coaches? We don't talk about that. We talk about people's needs, people's education, people understanding their bodies, people understanding their boundaries. Because a lot of times people can shut down intimately because their boundaries are crossed in brutal ways. And they don't know how to stand up for themselves. That's what we talked about in coaching, not machines. Next, what did you say here? You keep saying that women are addicted to. Women are not addicted. Have you ever really understood a bit about women? I don't know what the reality is in your country. In my country, women are not addicted to this. And I can say this because there are a lot of public discussions about sexuality. There are psychologists, coaches, podcasts done with topics about sexuality. Nobody's even talking about machines. Nobody's talking about accessories. That's what we call them. When we got trained, sexual accessories, okay, or adult accessories, which are for both men and women, by the way. And when it came to addictions, when we got trained, we were talking about pornography addiction, and guess who's dependent on that one, statistically speaking? Yeah, you guessed it, men. And we talk about masturbation addiction, usually coped or linked to pornography addiction. That's what we talked about. And when it came to sexual addiction, sex addicts, this term has been debunked by a lot of psychologists. Okay, it's not that people are addicted to sex. Maybe they are overly dependent on certain ways to engage. Maybe people are sexual abusers or aggressors because they don't understand that others don't want to have sex with them, so they push it. Some people actually enjoy pushing it. Watch the freak-offs nowadays, Puff Daddy, all the stuff that is coming out from those parties. People being drugged and had sex with against their, not necessarily their will, their knowledge. Okay, they don't even know what is going on with them. They are knocked out completely. Check out the case in France. Gisèle Pellicot, the woman in her 70s now, who was heavily drugged by her husband and father of their children, and invited over 70 men in their own home, in their matrimonial bed, to have sex, rape his wife, who was unknowing. And the wife thinking that because she had memory lapses, because those were heavy drugs, and specialists compared the use of the drugs that she was given to close to coma states, okay, close to being comatose. That's how knocked out the woman was by her husband without her permission. And she was raped, and the husband, the sicko, actually filmed that. We can talk about that. You want to talk about these things? Okay, talk about sick people. And we can talk about in the United States, in Florida, there was the sheriff came out with several hundred arrests of various sex felons, either child traffickers, either people that were forced into sexual prostitution, or people that were responding to solicitation for having sex with minors. And those were men, most of them. Grown-up men married with kids. You want to talk about addictions? Let's talk about pedophilia. Let's talk about abuse. Okay, sir. The men that don't do that and are insecure about their sexuality, so to the opposite extreme, if you want to blame your wives, don't expect us to believe it, because it's really insecurities. Honestly, insecurities that a lot of men have, and they blame it on their wives. What else did you say? That because a guy is unable to perform way past 10 seconds with his wife, okay, somebody that he decided to marry, and she decided to marry him, guess what? It was probably for good reason. It wasn't a joke. Okay, people don't take marriages for jokes. And those two people that decided to take it as far as getting married, which is a very important step. This guy was married, actually. He would know better. He wouldn't just marry somebody random. Okay, you got to trust the men that you want to help, that they also chose the woman that they felt for, but they're unable to satisfy her. And then to call her a streeter, those people's wives, sir. A lot of these guys also, what do you know about them? Are they virgins also, or were they penetrators, as you called in your post, of other women in the past? I mean, are those guys without experience at all? Really? So, sir, I disagree with a lot of the ways of your thinking, honestly. I'm not going to beat my chest here and say that what I say is valid in 97% of the cases. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to speak at least from the experience that I have with the few women in my country that I've worked with in individual coaching sessions. That's what I base my disbelief, because this is what I'm expressing, a disbelief in this statement. Not, you don't have actual evidence of what you're saying. I don't have more evidence aside from the practice in my work helping women, in most cases women in relationships or married, who are struggling with low libido or lowered libido, usually because they are overworked and they are not really heard or understood. Or sometimes they are not satisfied by their husbands, and at a certain point they just give up. This is supposed to be enjoying, for pleasurable for both people. If it's not, there's no point in doing it. Unless you want to, as a man, experience what it's like to be penetrated by somebody, you not enjoying it, but still being called to do it or expected to do it. Boy, that's a mind shifter. I think there was a good reason for him to delete this post, because it's really improperly built or argued for or debated, in my opinion. And it's just insulting the wives that, because some guys don't work their issues, and projecting it on another because you won't handle your own stuff. That's immature, put blatantly and simply. Ladies, if you ever come across posts of this manner, I'd say move on. Honestly, if your husbands are blaming you for their inability to perform in intimacy, first of all, I think that situation begs the question, how did you two decide to get married? Was there any trust there? Because the second somebody starts to blame the other person, when the other person is communicating that something's not right, there's a lack of trust there. So ladies, if you stuck with me so far, I'm going to remind you that you can always work in coaching with me in case you have lowered libido, in case you have a lot of pressure, tension, there's a lot going on in your life that is just draining you of your energy. I have a community of practices for relaxation to help you sleep better, to help you release tension from your body, to help you process emotions, heavy emotions. We do that a lot with breath work. So check out my community, okay? Let's work there. And if somebody's reproaching to you, whatever imaginary stuff, that one I'd take it up in coaching or in relationship counseling, because that's no way to build a relationship in the long run. and distrusting one person, yeah, no way to build your future. I hope this helps, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.